3, 2, 1. Damn, that was a good clap. Summit of the Gods is a really good movie that is also really hard to talk about. And the reason for that is... honestly, I don't have an answer for that. Even after all the time I spent working on this video, I still don't have a definitive answer for why this movie is so hard to talk about. But I think the reason it is because it is not something I can put into words. And that seems quite fitting considering the subject of this video and the movie. Summit of the Gods is a film with a lot of messages. However, ultimately, I think it has one core message it wants people to reflect on. Would an answer to your question you've been pursuing actually satisfy you? Would you be happy? Will it actually make you happy to have the answer? Do you need the answer? Or is it okay to leave some questions unanswered? There are 3 quotes I really like by a philosopher. 1. Often you spend so much time pursuing your goal, you don't know what to do once you've obtained it. 2. If you actively seek happiness in life, you will never find it no matter how long you search. And 3. People will spend so much time searching for something simple in life, such as happiness, success, or stability, that by the time they find it, they've elevated it to such a level in their mind that it's warped into this thing that they're no longer able to recognize as what they wanted. So they continue to search, never being able to find it, and often leading to a self-destructive behaviour. While these are very pretentious statements, they're also completely true of Summit of the Gods. They were also completely made up by me, but it doesn't make them any less true. Summit of the Gods ask the answer of 2 big questions. Why do people risk their life climbing mountains? And was Mallory the first person to climb Mount Everest? And by the end of the film, we have an answer to both those questions. Back in 2023, I made a video on Summit of the Gods. And I think it's a really good video. But due to how unusable Vegas 21 was on my computer, while I think it was the best video I could have made with the tools I had at the time, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But now that I have Premiere Pro and the tools I can use to make the video the best I can, I wanted to make another video on Summit of the Gods. But then that raises a question. What do I make the video on? Should I have just remade my original video just with the tools I wanted, saying, hey, this was good, but this is what I wanted? Should I have gone for a new take? Should I have maybe talked about the philosophy of the film? Perhaps a deeper look at the symbolism of each scene? I wasn't sure, because while these are fun subjects to talk about, the philosophy of the film and its very nature that it answers at the end of the film, it kind of felt redundant or in void of the message of the movie to do something like that. So I decided to sit down and rewatch the movie again and say, whatever jumps out at me, that's what I'm going to make a video on. And something did jump out at me. Summit of the Gods is a film that I have watched 8 or 9, maybe even 10 times, possibly more at this point. I honestly can't say I've watched this movie enough times because it is a film that I truly enjoy, and the message behind it just really stuck with me. But as I was watching it, something caught my ear. Something I hadn't noticed the first 8, 9, 10 dozen times I'd watched it. There were these lines in the film that I didn't remember. Now, I will be completely candid. I do not know the movie off by heart. I am not going to claim that. I'm not going to pretend that. I cannot recite the movie word for word. Chances are I was just misremembering the movie. But after the amount of times I had watched it, it was that little itching in the back of my brain going, this is more than just misremembering, right? It's sort of like when a video is ever so slightly out of sync. It's 0.1 second out of sync. You can't directly tell that it's out of sync, but your brain can just notice that something's not quite right. And by the time the movie was only 5 minutes in, I couldn't ignore it. All the dialogue felt ever so slightly different. In some cases, it felt like their lines had been reconstructed. Not drastically different, but ever so slightly reworded. Instead of saying, "Once the snow is set, we'll start climbing," they would have said, "We'll start climbing once the snow is set." And in other cases, the film felt like it had completely changed the conversation the characters were having. I can't say how it was different, but as I continued to watch, I was hearing information about the film I had never heard before. Now, if I'd only watched the movie once or twice, or maybe even 3 times, I could have easily let this slide. I could have been like, you know what? I missed this information the first time, the second time, and the third time I watched it. I'm just, it's been a while since I watched the movie, I need a refresher, and I just didn't remember these scenes. But considering the subject of the first video I made on this movie, and the amount of times I've watched it, and the depth I looked into every scene and the meaning behind it, I couldn't ignore it. Then I reached the scene. About 20 minutes into the film, there is a scene that is half the reason this film stuck with me so much. While I was making my first video on this film, I must have rewatched this scene dozens of times. I can't tell you what the dialogue was before watching it for this most recent time, but I can tell you definitively it was definitely different this time. It's like when you turn on subtitles for a dub. Even though it's the same information, the wording never quite lines up, which is what I thought it might have been. Son of the Gods is initially a French film that had been translated into different languages. And that's what I thought it was. I thought maybe they'd re-recorded Son of the God. They had re-recorded all the lines to be closer to the original translation. As for why they would do that, there isn't really an answer. It doesn't make any sense at all. There's no financial benefit to slightly changing words to re-release a thing that no one is currently talking about. So it doesn't make logical sense, but it does make sense to why I believe the audio and dialogue was different. Even so, I couldn't let this fester in my mind, so I went searching for answers. I looked for anyone else asking if the audio had been re-recorded. I searched the wikis for a mention of a redubbing. I scoured the internet for third-party websites that pirated the film from before 2023 when I had originally watched it. And to Google's credit, they have proper cracked down on piracy. There was only 5 pages worth of actual results that I could find for Son of the Gods third-party plays, and of all 5 of those pages, I went to page 2 of Google, that's how dedicated I was to this. Of all 5 pages of those, I could only find one single page that actually had a live footage that wasn't, "Sorry, this video's been taken down," or "Sorry, you can't watch it," or "Sign up to this totally not scam to be able to watch Son of the Gods dub English before 2023. That's what it's called. Those websites. What's my point here? But yes, I found one website that said, "Hey, you can watch this that isn't the official Netflix one." Unfortunately, it didn't specify when it was uploaded, and the audio all matched the new version that I didn't recognize. The most likely answer is, somehow, even after probably a dozen watches, I just don't remember a lot of the movie. And even though I was almost certain that was the answer, I couldn't help but keep looking. Keep Googling different variations of the exact same search and repeatedly getting the same links and results as before. But then I started thinking about the message behind Son of the Gods. And it made me ask a simple question that somehow hadn't crossed my mind, but it couldn't leave my mind afterwards. What would happen if I actually found the answer I was looking for? What would happen in my life if I found out, yes, they had redubbed it? How would my life change? And I thought about what would happen if I managed to find a version that was dubbed ever so slightly differently. Then what? What would change in my life? I'd have my answer, but what would that change? Cool, there is a different version that exists with slightly different audio. Would I be happy? Would I be content? Would my life have any more meaning than before I had this answer? And ultimately, does it actually matter what the answer is? Even if there was a definitive answer, which seems to be, no, the audio hasn't changed, I'm just misremembering it. But even if someone could definitively tell me that I could talk to the head animator, voice director, CEO, and everyone that's ever had a hand in this movie, and they'd all told me, no, the audio is the exact same, we have never re-recorded it. What would that change in my life? Would I be satisfied with that answer? And would that change my life for any way before and afterwards? Was I actually seeking an answer to have an answer to my question? Or was I simply just seeking an answer to have an answer? For instance, do you need to know the answer to whether this is heads or tails? Will that make your life any better or worse, knowing what the answer is? Some of the Gods is a film that asks the question of, do you need an answer? And even if there was an answer, would it make you happy? This video is not about Some of the Gods. This video is about why you should watch Some of the Gods.